What's going on, everybody? Necrophage here, and today I'm bringing you guys a commentary about used games and how they're probably not going to be around for very much longer. But before I get too far into it, let me give you guys an idea of what you're seeing on your screen. This is me creating my villain for DC Universe Online, and I say villain because Superman needs a formidable foe, and we know all the other villains out there aren't getting the job done, so step in, Necrophage. But to the topic at hand, for those who aren't aware of what's going on with Microsoft and Sony, basically both companies have rumored to be implementing a feature on their new consoles to make sure that used games aren't playable on the Xbox 720 and the PlayStation 4. And the reasoning for this is quite simple. They don't make money off of used games. Anytime used games are sold in stores to like GameStop or anything like that, Sony doesn't make any money, Microsoft doesn't make any money, and the people who made these games aren't making any money. So it's hurting the game industry in general because money isn't being distributed to the proper places. But I made a comment the other day to my cousin because we were having a talk about used games, and I basically told him that my GameFly subscription would be screwed as soon as the PlayStation 4 comes out, because that's essentially what my money is vested in with GameFly. GameFly is basically Netflix for video games, and it works basically how Netflix does. You have a list of games you want to play, past, present, future. Whenever you get a game, you play it, and whenever you're done, you send it back, and then the next game in your queue cycles up, and then when that game becomes available, they send it to you. And that's basically how I spend most of my time gaming. And of course I still buy games. I probably buy about a handful of games every year. But outside of that, I'm GameFlying everything else. And that's essentially what GameFly is the passing around of a used game to meet the needs of a lot of different gamers out there. And Sony has been, I'm only going to talk about Sony for right now because I'm not sure what Microsoft is going to be doing, but for the PlayStation 4, there's been a lot of different talks about how Sony is going to try to eliminate, a used game being played on their system. And they've talked about maybe linking the game itself to a PlayStation ID, that way that only one person can play it, or registering that game code to the console itself. A lot of different things that Sony has kind of rumored to be doing to prevent used games. But this marks the question: if used games cease to exist, then how will us as consumers be sure that we're spending money on quality games? And my first thought was a pretty obvious one, and it's that we as consumers are going to be more dependent on game reviews than we ever were before. And the reason for that is simple. $60 is just too steep for us to be taking a risk on a game that could potentially be terrible. And right now, game reviews are pretty much used as a helper tool. They're not really the determining factor as to whether or not we end up buying a game, but they sure as hell could be if our only options for the new consoles is to either buy a game or to leave it on the shelf. So up to this point, these reviews are going to be the only definitive insights that we have to figuring out whether a game is actually good or not once it finally launches. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least to hear that any of these game reviews are going to start being overanalyzed and overly dissected, because we're all going to be looking for that nugget of reassurance that we're spending our money wisely. These review scores are going to be extremely crucial to the success of any softwares that you see being pushed out on any of the new consoles. Another thing I can see taking off would be game trials, and I'm not sure if the Xbox Live store has this or anything like that, but on the PlayStation, in the PlayStation store, you can go to game trials and you can get a 60-minute trial of a game for free, and essentially you can start the game right at the beginning, and in 60 minutes you can get as far as you can go, and if you like the game after that, then you can either buy the game from the PlayStation Store itself or go out to like GameStop and buy the game there, and you'll still have all your progress saved from the trial itself. And to me, this could easily be the new way of renting, and I'm going to put renting in air quotes here. That could be the new way of renting games without actually having to spend money on anything. So I could see that being a big change for the new generation of consoles, because that's going to be our way of testing the waters, essentially. So the last thing Sony could do to ensure that PlayStation users are spending money on quality games would be to invent a service similar to what Steam is for the PC. And for those who don't know what Steam is an online store that PC users can go to not only purchase games, but to play their games from the cloud and hop in and out of games, basically at their own will. But the coolest part about Steam is that all their games on their site are priced appropriately to their current value in the market. So let me give you guys an example of some PS3 games just to give you guys an idea of pricing. Later on this year, Naughty Dog is supposed to release The Last of Us, and you can be sure that when that game comes out, it's going to be worth $60. Now, let's say from that same site, I wanted to buy a game like Mortal Kombat, which has been out now for about a year and a half, 2 years. Well, that game has now decreased in value, not only because of how old it is, but because of how many people are playing it now. There's not a lot of action going on in it. So let's say that game is priced at about $10. That's essentially what Steam does for the PC. Any games that have come out for the PC, their whole library is priced like that. And the coolest part about Steam is that any money that is used to buy games is sent to the people who actually made the games themselves, so that the developers and the publishers are actually making a profit on their games, even though they're 5 years old, 2 years old. It's brand new. However old it is, it's going to be profitable still. And that doesn't happen with used games in a retail store. In a retail store, a used game is sold back to a customer at an inflated price, and any profit made off of that sale goes back to the store itself. It doesn't go back to the people who made the game, and that's what the new consoles are trying to prevent. They're trying to make sure that any profits made off of a game are gone directly to the studio that made them, and that way they are more successful, and in turn they can produce more games for us in the future. At the end of the day, it's as simple as that. The end game is all about making sure that any profits made from these games get sent to the right people so that they can keep making games and in turn give us more games to play. How Sony actually intends to execute this plan has yet to be announced, but we're only a few days away from the Sony conference in New York City on February 20th, and hopefully then we'll be able to see the PlayStation 4, my baby. I'm so excited for that. And hopefully, more importantly than just seeing the hardware itself, hopefully we actually get some ironclad details that we can all speculate about then. But until then, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you guys going to miss the old ways of used games, or are you guys excited to see what these new consoles have in store for us? Anyways, I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you guys soon. Damn, look how sexy that Necrophage looks. It's ready to hand out ass kickings. Woo!